All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to the Healthcare Compliance Pros June 2016 OSHA Compliance Program webinar. We are glad that you've made it to the webinar today. And just so you know, I'm sure you know what we're doing today. We're going to be discussing OSHA, and the reason behind that is that there have been several changes to the OSHA regulations this year, and our presentation is going to help you understand how these laws affect your compliance program. And so we'll show you how to use the website to best manage your program, as well as talk to you about the laws and the changes in rules and regulations. So at this time, I'd like to just introduce the presenters for today's webinar. I'll be a co-presenter today, and my name is Michelle Lyman. I'm the Operations Manager at HCP, and I serve on the front lines in supporting you as clients. You may have talked to me in helping with your website management or some compliance basics. I also co-author some of the articles that you see in your insider newsletter. And just so you know a little bit about me, my background is as far as my career, I've worked with HCP for several years now, and I have past experience as a medical office manager, so I may have sat in the same chair that you're sitting in at some point. A pharmacy technician, I was an EMT at some point in my life, and I've also managed a coding department. Chad Schiffman will also be presenting today, and I'd just like to give Chad a few moments to introduce himself.
Yeah, so I'm the Compliance Specialist Manager here at HCP. Spend most of my time consulting with clients on their compliance issues, contribute to the Compliance Insider as well on a regular basis, do some product development. Most of you, well, a lot of you may have actually worked with me on a security risk analysis, maybe some different questions, maybe I've helped you with a breach or something along those lines. My background is actually in healthcare informatics and healthcare administration, and we're looking forward to this webinar today.
Thanks, Chad. At the end of today's presentation, Chad will host a short question and answer session. So if you have any questions come up during the webinar, go ahead and post them using the GoToWebinar dashboard, and we'll be able to address those questions and answer them for you during the Q&A segment. So at this point, I'm just going to turn some time over to Chad to introduce today's topic.
All right, well, thanks, Michelle. And as we wait for a slide to transition, today we're going to go ahead and review some of the 2016 updates that have happened with OSHA. We want to go ahead and talk about the importance of an OSHA self-inspection and how that can actually help you in your organization. Same thing with the OSHA Hazard Communications and Biomedical Hazard Program. There's been a lot of questions lately with regard to those two topics, so we want to make sure that you're aware. Also, we want to talk about the safety data sheet binder. Most of you may know what happened on June 1st, and we'll be talking about that here in a little bit as well. OSHA forms and posters, we'd like to make you aware of, some requirements with OSHA posters and forms, some of the updates that have happened along those lines as well. Finally, we'll also talk about some OSHA training and some of the ongoing support that we're able to provide you if you have any questions. We just want you to know that we're here to help you. And we also put together a handout for you, and we titled it 5 Things You Need to Do Now, and it's just basically going to be a summary of what we're going to talk about today. So, and then like Michelle said, we'll go ahead and have a Q&A answer at the end. So this time I'll turn it back over to Michelle for a moment.
So just as an introduction to our format today, Chad is going to be discussing the laws and the regulations, and then we'll kind of switch over to the website a little bit, where I will highlight where you go on the website to perform the items that we're discussing. So I'll show you how to implement the suggestions we're making using your website tools.
All right, so this slide we titled OSHA Updates for 2016, and what we're going to talk about is some of the final rules to be aware of. Let's first talk with the fire safety and workplace injuries rules. Probably start with fire safety one. While technically it's actually a CMS final rule, what they have done is they have set fire safety requirements for certain healthcare facilities that will most likely see some involvement with OSHA. Basically, as written with the final rule, it adopts the National Fire Protection Association's 2012 edition of the Life Safety Code, as well as the provisions of the NFPA's 2012 edition of the Healthcare Facilities Code. Now what's interesting with this is CMS has adopted this fully knowing that OSHA and NFPA are in an agreement right now to where they're actually going to rely on each other's guidance going forward. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this evolves. Essentially, these requirements will apply to facilities such as long-term care facilities, inpatient hospice facilities, ambulatory surgical centers, and others. So if you have any questions about, there is an article that has been published, and we can get you the link to that at the end. Also, OSHA released new guidelines this year, talking about these 7 areas outlined that encourage organizations, basically processes that protect the workforce, further ensuring a safer workplace. These are actually voluntary guidelines, but they're recommended nonetheless. So, you know, it's not a new standard or regulation, but these preventative measures described in the 7 areas could help you effectively protect workers. We are going to actually make sure that this is covered in our training, so you will have that up to date, and there will actually be an article on that as well. So we would encourage participation in parts of these guidelines, as it will actually be part of the OSHA program. And we'd like to just tell you to go ahead and stay tuned, and we'll keep updating you with any changes or any additional requirements to participate with that. Okay, so our next slide, we're going to talk about the OSHA self-inspection. Now, why this is important is it helps you to assess your risk and probability level. The OSHA self-inspection helps you to ensure you are compliant with your general work environment, with required employer postings, building safety, bloodborne pathogen standards, and more. That's all in there for you to use as part of the OSHA program. And it can actually be performed as many times as you would like, and can be performed on a department level, which is actually really important for you to know. Essentially, employers are responsible for providing a safe and helpful workplace for the employees, and this inspection is one of those tools that would actually help you very well with that. And also, if you've done that, it's a good way to help you be prepared in case there's an actual OSHA inspection. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Michelle here real quick, and maybe she can show you how the self-inspection works and what you can expect to see if you perform one.
So let's see. All right, so at this point you should be able to see my screen on the website. Chad, will you confirm that my screen is now showing for you?
It is, correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is the office level. You're familiar with this. Here's your dashboard, and what we'll be talking about, as Chad has just introduced, is the OSHA self-inspection. You'll find the OSHA self-inspection under Tools and Assessments on your dashboard, and you'll just click on the title. And once you've opened the self-inspection, you'll notice that it reviews everything from that Chad was just talking about. Here's the general work environment questions and employer postings. So we review which posters you need to have open and posted in your organization. And then it goes into building safety with just the general tripping and signage, and just so that you have a safe environment for your employees to work in. And then, because we deal with mostly medical facilities, we go into questions that have to do with everything from your first aid kit into bloodborne pathogen standards. I'll just open up one of the slides to show you what you'll be looking at when you work this OSHA self-inspection. So we'll just go to the hand washing slide. Excuse me, and you'll just observe what's going on with your employees. Are they washing their hands after contamination and between patients? And so as you observe that interaction, you can go ahead and then answer just saying what you found, and then put your comments here, and this then becomes a great report for you to print out later so that you can see each of your answers. You can give this to your supervisors and be able to have them look at the items that you feel like need to be addressed. And once you complete the entire OSHA self-inspection, you'll click the Finalize button. And once it's finalized, you'll be able to go up to the archived area as notated by this file folder, and you'll see the history every time you've conducted this self-inspection. And the self-inspection is, you know, we have clients that perform it every 6 months or so, just to make sure that they're up to date on all of the implementations of their policies and procedures as far as how their employees are handling handling the OSHA standards within their organization. So just keep in mind that, let me just show you again where you find it. Once you log in, you go into your office, you're at the office dashboard, you click on Tools and Assessments, and then open up the OSHA Self-Inspection. And I'm going to now turn it back over to Chad.
All right, so as we go ahead and move on to our next slide, we're going to go ahead and talk about the OSHA Hazard Communications and Biomedical Hazard Program. First of all, it's important to know that under OSHA, the employer shall train each employee with occupational exposure in accordance with the requirements of the section. Essentially, that means such training must be provided at no cost to all employees and during working hours. Now with that, the employer must institute a training program to ensure employees are participating in their OSHA program. The training should cover things like the exposure control plan and means to which the employee can obtain a copy of the written plan. We've had some questions about this lately, so we just want to make sure that we cover that. In just a few moments after I cover this next topic, Michelle will show you where we have a little bit of that, or we'll actually talk about it a little bit more for you. Now, with regard to the OSHA Hazard Risk Assessment, this is very important for several reasons. Basically, under OSHA, you have a requirement as an employer. They are required to assess the workplace to determine if hazards are present, are likely to be present, and which of those hazards actually necessitate using personal protective equipment. Now from there, the employer is responsible to select which PPE, personal protective equipment, that employees are going to be required to use in each circumstance or each situation that comes up where there's a hazard present, so that they have the PPE that will protect the affected individual most from the hazards identified in the hazard risk assessment. This is something that should be performed, and go ahead and send it over to Michelle and have her show you how that goes down.
Let me just show you the screen again. And again, we're at the office and looking in Tools and Assessments, only this time we're looking at the OSHA Hazard Risk Assessment. And when you open the assessment, it gives a description of what Chad was just explaining to you, that this is an assessment that documents all of the personal protective equipment that you're using in different procedures and with the instruments, etc., within your organization. So let's just look at the cleaning treatment areas as an example, and you'll see that we've already filled this out. So with regard to cleaning treatment areas, please select all applicable PPE used in your office, and in this case we've just said gloves and masks. And under the additional comments, this is just a suggestion for what you might put. We're just saying that gloves and masks are available in the supply closet in each room. But if you go into the supply closet and in each exam room, and you note that exam room number 1 is out of supplies, and then date it, this would be a good heads up of what you need to do, and perhaps a person who's responsible for that would then be tasked with making sure that that PPE was always updated and available for your staff members. So also I wanted to share with you that on the on your OSHA training in your biomedical waste plan, I believe that's on slide 96. Let me just go back out and give you a quick look at that. So if we go to the modules and to the OSHA training, we'll just slide down to 96 real quick. And here's your biomedical waste plan. And it's just talking about all of the elements that Chad was discussing earlier. So you know that that policy and procedure is in your training. So I'm going to turn that back over to Chad. And here you go.
All right, so as we're moving on to the next sheet, we want to go ahead and talk about the SDS Finder, which is really really important to talk about right now, especially on January 1st, the transition occurred. I'm sorry, June 1st, the transition occurred. So we want to make sure that we cover that. The hazard communication standards requires that the chemical manufacturer, distributor, or importer provides safety data sheets, which were formerly the MSDS, or material safety data sheets, for each hazardous chemical to downstream users to communicate information on these hazards. The information contained in the SDS is largely the same as the MSDS, except now the SDSs are required to be presented basically in a consistent 16-section format, which should make it easier for the customers to understand. So essentially what we're looking at is sections 1 through 8 is your general information about the chemical, identification, hazards. You'll have some composition information, safe handling practices, and your emergency control measures. That's all contained within the first 8 sections of the SDS. From there, sections 9 through 11 and section 16 actually contain other technical information and scientific information. That's going to include your physical and your chemical properties, the stability, reactivity information, toxicological information, stuff like that. Also, most importantly probably, is the exposure control information, as that's with the new GHS standards, that's really important to have in there. Sections 12 through 15, speaking of GHS, must be consistent with the UN globally harmonized system of classification and labeling chemicals. So what does this all mean for employers? Let's go ahead and turn it over to Michelle and she can touch on that.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry, I was muted there for a minute. So here we are at the SDS binder, and again, we got there from the dashboard, and we're just clicking on the SDS binder here on the left-hand side. And once you open it, you'll see a database of whatever you've added. This is the actual binder for this demonstration office, but if we go into the Browse SDS database, you'll see that we have literally thousands of material safety data sheets and safety data sheets. Now the interesting thing is that the manufacturers were required to have updated their material safety data sheets to the SDS version by last June. What we're finding is that many of our manufacturers have kind of been slow and haven't actually updated those. So you'll notice that you'll have some versions that are SDS and some versions that are MSDS. And we've been told that this is to be expected and that it's not a problem as long as you as the employer, or if you're using our SDS database, if you're consistently working with those manufacturers to get the update once it's received. So let me just show you a couple of safety data sheets. So this is what it looks like, and as Chad was discussing, there are the 16 different sections. So this particular one is for Don, which is something that you might have in your office, but you can go through and see that it does show the 16 different sections all the way through the regulatory information and the final information. So as you find items that you want to add to your binder, you will just click the add icon over here on the right. If you find that you don't see the particular manufacturer of the product that you are looking for, perhaps you're looking for a bacitracin ointment, but it's not manufactured by the Perrigo company, you can request an SDS from us, and so you would just click the request and it has instructions. If you have multiple SDSs that you would like to request, just go ahead and click on this form. It will open up a spreadsheet that you can put all of your requests on. The other thing that I wanted to show you about the SDS binder is that there is a desktop icon. So once you've created your binder and you have all of your material safety data sheets and safety data sheets added to your binder, you can then use the desktop binder icon, which will create an icon on your desktop that your staff members can then just click on that and it will open up your binder immediately. The reason that we've added this is that you have the responsibility of making these safety data sheets available to all employees at all times. Sometimes it's difficult to make that available to everyone if it's in a physical binder and it's locked in a cabinet somewhere, or if it's at one nurse's station and you have a very large organization and people have to go over to that other department to pick up the binder. So we've created this icon for you. You can download that so that each person who has access to a computer can go ahead and open that up at any time that they're on the job. We also suggest that you might want to consider, even if you are using an electronic database such as this that I'm demonstrating here, you may also want to print each of the safety data sheets on an annual basis or save it to a drive or something like that, just so that you've got a backup copy. It's important to know that no matter what situation you're in, whether you have access to the internet or not, that you still have that backup copy as in case of an emergency or loss of power. If we have any questions about this, we'd be happy to answer them during our Q&A session at the end. Chad, was there anything else you wanted to add to this discussion before we move on?
No, I just wanted everybody to be aware of the update to the SDS that the compliance date is June 1st, as Michelle talked about. While some of the sheets might be MSDS, it's important to make sure that we get some SDS information going for you as well. So. Yeah.
So even if the item that you are using in your organization, even if it doesn't have a safety data sheet update, we'll upload that MSDS, and then we'll continue working with that manufacturer to make sure that once they do provide the SDS that it's updated. So you don't need to worry about doing any of the updates. We do that for you. So I'll go ahead and change back so that Chad can go on to the next slide.
So this one, we're going to go ahead and talk about some OSHA forms and posters. I'm sure if we were to ask for a show of hands, most of you would raise your hand and say that you've been contacted by a third-party vendor who says that you must buy their poster to be in compliance. Whether it's OSHA, HIPAA, or whatever, they'll tell you that, hey, buy our poster and you will be in compliance. Well, while you're required to display the OSHA, it's the law poster in your workplace, contrary to popular belief, you were not required to purchase the third-party version or update your poster on an annual basis. If you have this version, you have the most current version, so there's no need to update this particular poster on an annual basis. It's actually available for free. We have it on our website. OSHA has it on their website. So if you get that call, just know that if you have this poster, you're doing what you need to do. It's also important to know if you're in a state with state-approved OSHA plans, they may have a version of the It's the Law poster as well. For example, Washington has the WSHA program, and they have a WSHA version of this program that employers are required to display. So if you're in one of those states or have questions, if you're in one of those states, feel free to shoot us an email. Happy to help you make sure that you have the correct poster up. Also, it's important to note that just recently, and you may have saw it in our Insider, the OSHA has issued a final rule to modernize the injury data collection to better inform workers, employers, and the public and OSHA about workplace hazards. Basically, under this, what we're talking about is the forms 300, 300A, and 301. Under the new rule, all establishments with 250 or more employees and facilities covered by the record-keeping regulation must electronically submit to OSHA injury and illness information from OSHA forms 300, 300A, and 301. Now, establishments with 20 to 249 employees, depending on which industries you are in, must electronically submit information to OSHA from the form 300A alone. And if you have questions about if you fall into that industry, we can share with you the information of the healthcare industries that we're actually seeing in our Q&A section. Michelle, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that all of these required posters and the forms 300A, etc., are on the website. So again, you would just go into your office, and this time you would click on the Forms tab, and once you're on the Forms tab, you would just perform a keyword search to see the options, and then you can download and print any of the forms. And if you have questions about the forms or how to access them, or what types of forms are available, go ahead and shoot either Chad or I a question in an email, or you can just send it over to support@hcp.md if you have any questions about accessing any of the forms that are available on the website. And then I just wanted to take a moment and talk about the OSHA training and the ongoing support. One of the things that I'm responsible with as the operations manager is to make sure that you get all of the support that you need through your entire compliance program. And so we are here all year round for you. If you have any questions about not only your training or the OSHA program as we've described it within this webinar, whether it's your safety data sheet binder, or perhaps the OSHA self-inspection or the OSHA hazard risk assessment, we're here to help you with that. So as you're going onto your website and looking through and looking at these tools and assessments, looking at the forms, just make sure that if it's something that that you're not familiar with and you need a little bit of extra training, reach out to myself or your representative at HCP, and we'd be happy to schedule a quick training for you, or just shoot you an email with some step-by-step instructions. So never feel like you're on your own. We are here as your compliance professionals and really want to support you with your entire program. We've discussed a lot of rules today and some very technical information, but all of the support for complying with that as far as the rules and regulations is all set up within your training, and then the support system through the tools and assessments modules, the forms, etc. So at this point, we're going to move into the Q&A portion of our webinar. So I'm going to turn the presentation back over to Chad, and I think we've got some questions that he's going to start answering.
All right, so as Michelle said, we did have some questions come in. We did answer the new CMS fire safety rule and if it applies to physician's office. Basically, we're talking about the long-term Medicare beneficiary type facilities that we're going to, whether it's critical access hospitals and those type of things. Some of the acute centers as well may be applicable under that. Not physicians' offices that we're aware of. Not yet, anyway. We think that there may be some guidance down the road, especially from OSHA into that regard. So as we're going down here, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these questions. Actually, I think we're going to go ahead and have Michelle answer this one because she's kind of the professional at this. So I'm going to go ahead and ask it, and then we'll get the answer to it. One of the questions that came in says, does the desktop binder update for every employee as we update it in the system? Michelle, would you like to answer that one?
Sure. Yes, it does. So once you update the master binder, everybody who has that desktop icon will have the the automatic updates. So anytime you make a change, it affects the entire binder, whether you have one office or several offices. Everyone within your organization will receive those updates.
Well, while you're at it, Michelle, do you want to answer this one? They asked, do they need to log in to view the SDS binder once they download it?
Actually, no. They have to have access to their computer, so if they've logged into their computer when they get to work in the morning, you'll just have that icon saved to their desktop. So they don't have to log in, and this is really helpful for those employees in your organization that really don't get onto Healthcare Compliance Pros except for to take their training. So they don't need to remember their login or what the URL is. All they need to do is know where that icon is. They can click it and open it up immediately.
So we had another question come in that says, where do we need to go on your website to get the OSHA poster? And that you want to make sure that the ones you have at your sites are basically in compliance. So you can actually access the form section right from your office view. So if you're logged into your Office dashboard, just go ahead and click on the Forms section on the left-hand side, and then you can search for OSHA and ensure that you have all the correct posters, that you have the correct forms. And once again, if you have any questions about which ones you need specifically for your practice, just drop us an email and we'd be happy to help you with that.
That's right. And let me also add, when you open up the Forms tab, you'll notice that there's a search bar and a drop-down option. So you can use the drop-down option and just look at all of the OSHA documents and forms, or if you're looking for something specific, like perhaps it's the law poster, you can do a keyword search. So you would just type in poster and it would bring up all of the posters that we have, for example.
So it had another one as well come in, and it says, are the requirements different for different sizes of practices? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's regarding the posters that we're talking about, or if it's in general, or whether it's like with the forms. I would ask if you could actually provide a clarifying question just so that we make sure that we actually cover exactly what you want to know as far as the different requirements. I want to make sure that I answer that correctly for you. Oh, just the general requirements. Okay. There are some requirements that are different for smaller practices versus larger practices. But overall, let's look at bloodborne pathogens, for example. If there is a potential for exposure, you have the same responsibility at one facility versus the other because you're covered under OSHA. Same thing as with your posters. Even though you're a smaller practice, you still have to have the law poster displayed. Where the different requirements would come in is, like we mentioned, with the submission of the injury forms and those type of things, depending on which type of facility that you're in. And once again, if you want me to get really specific, I would be, should we conduct a voluntary assessment? It's fun. You're talking about with the voluntary assessment, talk with the OSHA reps in your region. You certainly are welcome to do that. That is a free service that OSHA does provide. However, you can know that the way we've set up our OSHA self-inspection is to mimic one of those. And actually it follows along with what they would look at if they came into your facility. So if you have access to that OSHA self-inspection, you could definitely take advantage of that.
And what's nice about the OSHA self-inspection, sorry to interrupt, Chad, it's nice that you can complete it multiple times. So not just that one time that you have those OSHA reps in your office, but you can go through your physical surroundings as often as you want to make sure that those items are taken care of.
And then we had another one here come in and it says, did you say that healthcare organizations with 2 to 249 employees are required to submit forms electronically? So for the form, it's actually 20 to 249 for the 301 form that should be submitted. Another question we had come in is, should business offices or business office staff have this training? And the way we'd like to answer that is, if there's any potential for exposure of any kind, even with business office staff, at that point they should actually have the OSHA training that includes bloodborne pathogens. If there is no potential for exposure, it's a good idea to have them at least complete the general OSHA training. Any other questions for us?
Looks like that might be it for today.
All right, so it looks like we're done, as Michelle said. We'd like to go ahead and thank you for joining us today for our OSHA program webinar. I'd like to let you know this program has been recorded, so you can access the webinar at any time. We'll send you the link. Actually, I'm sorry. It will be available with next week's Compliance Insider, so watch for it to be available then, and you can click it and listen to it. Also, our contact information is included on this slide. So if you'd like to take a moment, write it down. If you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to discuss further. And once again, we'd like to thank you and turn this time over to Michelle for a moment.
Thanks, Chad. So on this slide that you're seeing right now, it has the 5 things to do now. This is just a quick overview of what you have in your handout, but I just wanted to review it quickly. So the things that we today were the need to conduct an OSHA self-inspection for each physical location. We'd encourage you to conduct or update your OSHA hazard risk assessment for each clinical location that has individual PPE requirements. Also, we discussed that safety data sheet binder, so we'd encourage you to create or update that, whether you're using a physical binder or you would like to use our electronic binder. Also, make sure that you're displaying the required posters, and we can help you with that if you have any questions again. And then finally, confirm that your training contains your current policies and procedures. So we would encourage you to go into your OSHA training, make sure that it's customized in accordance with your current policies and procedures, that you're actually implementing the procedures that are outlined within that module. So finally, we just wanted to let you know that we appreciate your participation today, and to watch for announcements for July's webinar in your Insider newsletter. As a reminder, those go out every Wednesday, so watch for those in your inbox, in your email. And also that we host these informative webinars the second Thursday of each month, so plan to join us next month. And again, if you have any questions about the tools and assessments we've reviewed during today's webinar, just go ahead and contact us or your HCP representative. So I'd like to thank you again for your participation, and we'll see you next month.